I lose a couple of engines on this airplane, I got no place. I got to put this thing down on the ice, on the Arctic ice. I mean, it's like there's polar bears. We see polar bears down there. I've fueled airplanes. I've had our guys fueling airplanes. We were given 10 gauge shotguns. Okay. One guy on the nose of the aircraft, two guys on the wing of the aircraft, and one guy on the tail of the air. Have you ever heard of a 10 gauge shotgun?
Yes, I have.
Hey, y'all, how's y'all mama and them?
Hey there, como ça va and que pasa? Welcome to the In the Pocket with JayBo podcast, and I'm your host, Jay Bodwin. Today we have a very special show coming up about our good friend Darryl, the Cajun Centanni's new book, So You Think You Want to Be a Pilot, The Gouge. And we'll be talking about his book coming up, but first, I'd like to introduce my guest today, and I have a special co-host that's already been on the In the Pocket with JayBo podcast. In season 1, episode number 9. He's a legend on the West Bank of New Orleans, and I want to thank you, Mr. Troy Cotten, for joining us today.
Hey, y'all, how's y'all mama and them?
That's what I'm talking about. And also, our very esteemed guest, military veteran for over 20 years. He went to high school with Troy and I at Archbishop Shaw High School in New Orleans. Actually in Marrero, Louisiana, a suburb of New Orleans, Mr. Darryl the Cajun Centanni. How you doing, Darryl?
All right. Thank you, buddy. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Troy. Appreciate it, guys.
And it's the first time on our podcast that we're having a promotion about a new book coming out, and we'll be getting to that in a minute. First thing I want to get into today is I really appreciate Troy joining us again. He was a hit. And I also want to let him know that to this day still, his episode has the most views out of all of the episodes that we've done so far. You got Jerry beat by a few. You got Brian Bloom beat by a couple, but he is still number one on the podcast. So thank you, Troy.
When you constantly go look at yourself 100 times, you're gonna get Ed, you know.
We gotta love him. We gotta love him. So,
well, Troy, maybe you'll help us with this one now pretty well. This episode.
Hey, this one's a good one. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And Darryl, we appreciate the opportunity of you letting us use this avenue to get your book out, man, and get the word out in the book. It's amazing. And I did read the book. So you can find it here, folks. It is, what did we say here? It is on Amazon. It's the #1 new release of aviation biography. Now, I know it's not really necessarily a biography, but it's definitely a how-to if you want to kind of book. And also, I can tell you, I know really nothing about aviation other than, well, actually, one of my great friends growing up, Greg Stahl, was also in the Navy. He was a Naval Flight Officer for many years. Very proud of him for what he accomplished. And also, I've watched the Top Gun movie and the sequel, Troy. So I know a little bit there, man. I know about Maverick, but
so we
might know Maverick, but now we know the Cajun, baby.
So Jay, Greg, and I were in Aviation Officer Candidate School together.
Yes.
So I was a candidate class officer when he was coming through as a poopy, and a drill instructor came in. I got to tell this quick story. Can I tell it?
Please do.
Yeah. So I was a candidate class officer. It was what you call a 3-bar. And one of the DIs came through and they said, Daddy, get your ass over here, boy. So I run over there to go talk to Staff Sergeant Hancock, United States Marine Corps. And I'm standing up there all braced up talking to Hancock. I said, yes, sir. And he turns around and he says, hey, there's another boy over there in a poopy class that talks like you. And he said, nobody can understand a damn thing he says. And he says, you need to go over there to Gunnery Sergeant Boland, and you need to go over there and interpret for him. So he sent me over there.
So you had no idea.
And that's how I found out who it was. It was Stahl. And I barely recognized him because his head was shaved. And I had my hair was 15 at that point. My hair was growing out, but his hair you know. And yeah, I did. My hair did grow back, but
Right.
his hair, he was shaved, and I didn't recognize him. And he looked at me, and I saw him PT, and I said, "Man, I know that guy. That guy was a basketball player. I know." Yeah,
Wow. Small
Hey,
world.
Greg. Yep.
true story.
We actually went into the Navy right about the same time. And because we had talked about it for a while, and Greg actually had the idea first, and he told me about it. And this is around 1985, 86, and there just wasn't nothing going on. The oil field had gone down, and we're like, what the hell are we going to do? And we
Yeah,
ended up deciding at that time to go into the Navy. And I still
yeah,
had a couple of years of school left, and he had finished. So I went in and enlisted, and he went into AOCS. And yeah, we went in right about the same time. But you had told me that story, and I think Greg had told me years ago. I just don't remember. But I do remember I do remember your name with something. And I probably said, Big Darryl or something. Damn, that's crazy, something like that. Because
yeah,
I didn't know you were interested in flying or anything. We were kind of arm length friends way back then,
yeah,
so who knows, man. And
Yeah, I mean, football, man. I didn't know. Well, of course, we didn't have no air flight training at Shaw, so, but I would have,
one of the things that influenced me a lot at Shaw was I played football, but my older brother, was in the ROTC, the drill team.
the Sea
okay,
Eagles.
And I'm going to tell you something. That drill team were national champions for years
Yep.
under
nice,
that leadership. And they would go and win all these national championships, not state championships, national championships.
nice,
And my buddy Lloyd LaGrange, he was the age of my brother. He's always wondered whatever happened to the Sea Eagles. They used to have all these awards in the lobby of
Mm-hmm.
guys.
mm-hmm.
And those guys, they kind of they kind of inspired me. But I was a ball player at the
Right,
time. That wasn't
right,
my gig, you know. But my brother was into it. And I thought they were cool I honestly, to watch these guys do what they did in parades and stuff like that.
yeah.
I
I
thought
thought,
those guys, I really looked up to them a lot, you know.
They used to perform for us a lot at school, you
Yeah,
know. Yeah,
they
they
really
very
worked
good.
hard at it, you know. And that was the time where nobody wanted to get their hair cut, man, and those guys
right,
had to go get a hair. Remember, nobody
right,
wanted to get a haircut. You know,
Right.
I don't go to the military if I don't want to go get a haircut. Remember those days?
right.
Chest on.
Yeah, I knew he was gonna come up.
Bigger.
Big Coach Ernie, man.
Big. Your hair would be here, and then he'd pull it down and touch your collar. Hey, boy, go get a haircut.
Right, right.
Yeah.
See, I got away with a lot because my hair was really curly,
Mm-hmm.
and so it would just go up and
Right.
out. It never went over the ears, you know. And at some point, he would say, "Okay, look." When he found me, you carry a fork in my back pocket, not a pick, but a fork. Because you want to know why? Because I could get the plastic forks, and that's why I picked my hair after. That's no kidding.
Hey, man, look, he was
Awesome.
strategizing back then, Troy. There you go, man.
And always trying to get over.
Right, right. Trying to get over on the man.
And that was hard to do.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. You go to
Yeah.
your, hey, son, you got to stand a little closer to your razor next time,
Yeah.
The only other person I've ever heard say that was my boot camp, a guy in boot camp. I've never heard anybody else say that before.
I heard him tell Paul Smoke Davis he had to go shave. Now, Smoke had one hair on his chin, maybe. And he told Paul, I said, how can you see him?
Smoke.
Paul is like 6'6", and
Yeah.
Ernie was what, 6 foot. He had to look up. I said, he's got one hair on his chin. He told me he had to go shave it.
I got to
That's
tell
funny.
you, the podcast I had with Jimmy and Sean Hintz, I told them, man, Ernie was a hell of an athlete when he was younger, man. I don't know if y'all knew that. He was,
Yeah.
he was
Yeah.
a hell of a
Yeah, I
football
heard
player,
that too.
So
Yeah.
anyway, so before we move on to my next block here with everything, I just want to remind everybody to please subscribe or follow. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're all over the place right now. We advertise the show on X, TikTok, Facebook. We're also on LinkedIn as well. So please catch us. There's no reason you can't. And follow us, subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. We'd love to hear what you have to say. So, Darryl, if you would give us a little background, where you're from. Troy and I know, but I want our audience to know where you're from, where you grew up
Sure.
on the West Bank. Give us a little background on Darryl Centanni.
So I grew up behind Schwegman's on a West Bank Expressway.
I love it, Troy.
Little neighborhood right there by, a couple of streets down was West Jefferson High School. And I grew up on a street called Gardere Street.
Dude, my grandfather lived on Maple Street. I was over there all the time.
Oh,
All the
yeah.
time.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah. And
Right across the street from the fire station. Right there.
oh, yeah. Oh,
My
yeah.
dad was born in that house.
So I threw all the newspapers. I threw
Okay.
all the newspapers I started out from Greffer Street over to the Peters Road.
Okay.
And I got into that job by Troy Stewart and Jay Smith. I don't know, you guys know Troy Stewart.
I know, Stu.
Okay.
And Troy, as he gave up his paper routes, I took that route when I was 11. I picked up all their routes. So I had 500 newspapers when I was a freshman in high school.
Wow.
So one of the reasons why I played as a freshman at Shaw is I had legs as big as a freaking tree trunk from pedaling a bike, every day, 500 newspapers before I went to practice. And I had legs like a tree trunk. I was no upper body, no skinny as a rail, but I had these tree trunks for legs. And I was all the way from Maple Street all the way over. I ultimately had all those newspapers.
Right. Man, that had to be
Some of
something
that
there,
neighborhood's
brother.
a rough neighborhood too, brother.
Yeah,
out
it
there
is.
behind
No doubt.
in West Jefferson. That was where Edwin Brazil lived, Donna Brazil's brother.
Right.
Right. And I used to have to, you have to fight your way in there and fight your way out every day.
Man, they had Troy Matthews and all them guys back over. I know some of them cats you're talking about, man. Absolutely.
From the express.
Glenn Pierce went to West Jefferson, real bad dude,
Mm-hmm. Here comes Big Leg Centanni with the newspapers, baby.
Don't mess with the newspaper, dude.
So you went to St. Rosalie Elementary, right?
Yeah, I went to St. Rosalie. Went there, did all the way kindergarten through 8th grade, still track a lot of friends there.
Right.
And so I grew up there at St. Rosalie, and I went to Shaw, and I don't know how I got accepted in Shaw because I wasn't a great student. And but I was a ball player. And
Right.
Hank Tierney had just gotten there at Shaw. He was at St. Joseph.
Yep.
Yeah, now.
And he coached flag football at St. Joseph.
Right.
And he kind of got me, to go over there. And I went to Shaw. My cousin was the head football coach, Bobby Gravelet at River Oaks. And he wanted me to go there and play.
Okay.
And I said I wanted to go to Shaw. And remember, John Forcade was big. It would have been my 8th grade year. And then I said, I think I want to go to Shaw. So I went to Shaw, and I was a 4-sport player. I played everything.
Right.
Played baseball and, did all that stuff. And so when I got to Shaw, I wound up walking out there one summer and wound up me, Scott Brothers, Mark Becknell. I can't remember. I think it was Wade Estopanol. We were like the only freshmen on the team.
Right.
And, we were punching bags, man, for Sidney Gautreaux. Let me tell you something. I saw the other end of Sidney Gautreaux a lot, and it was mainly with me on the ground looking up. Scott Brothers was quarterback, and he never finished out his full time. Oh, there was one other kid, Eddie O'Brien. Eddie O'Brien never finished up Shaw. He wound up going to St. Stanislaus. But Eddie went out there with us, and all 5 of us got pulverized daily by Schaff, not Randy. Is it not Randy Schaff? The other Schaff, Larry Schaff, Sidney Gautreaux, Angelo Provenzano, Steve Vidross. I had a car my sophomore year. I had a car, so all these guys would ride to school. Steve Panapinto.
Yeah.
Well, my freshman year, man, these guys pulverized me, and I was only about 129 pounds. I was as tall as I am now, but I had those tree trunk legs.
Right.
And and they pounded me, man. And they let me stay out there. They let me dress out. And the next year I came out there, I was about 180 pounds. I gained
Wow.
50 pounds. And then the next year, I gained a little more. When I left Shaw, man, I was 235 pounds.
Nice.
I was a big boy. And, but I didn't go right to college. I graduated 154 out of 155.
Right.
So I wasn't exactly tearing it up, but I wound up, I wanted to go play someplace, but I couldn't. There was no academically, nobody supported me. And I think Brother Ken, which became Father Ken, and I got a story about that. Remind me to tell you the story about that. It's in the book. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not in this book. It's in my second book.
Okay.
But later become Father Ken, but he was Brother Ken back then. And they didn't support that. They basically told me you need to go get a trade.
Right.
And so when I got out of school, I set out, I was working in a pipe yard. And at night I started going to Delgado to become an HVAC repair guy. Okay.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, guess what? And guess what you got to do when you got to do HVAC when you go to Delgado Community College? The first thing they give you is a freaking math book and an English book. No kidding. And so one day I'm about midway through semester. I'm with Keith Bourgeois. We're at a ball game. We went to I can't remember what ball game we went to. We're at a ball game and I'm driving, and Keith was back from USL. And he picks up the math book in the back of my car, and he says, "I got the same book." And I said, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "What chapter are you guys on?" I said, "Well, we're almost to the end of the book." And he goes, "Oh." He goes, "Why are you going to Delgado?" And I said, "Because Father Ken told me I need to go get a trade." And he goes, basically the light bulb came on me. He says, "Why am I doing this?" Because some dude told me I had to go there.
Right.
And at that point, I started thinking about it, and a couple of weeks later, I wrecked my car really bad. And I was drinking and partying. Back then, there wasn't no Mothers Against Drunk Driving, so
Sure.
it was totally stupid.
Right.
And I wrecked my car in the Harvey Tunnel, and
Wow.
my dad came, got me, towed the car away. Cops, my mom worked for the police department. Cops came and they didn't arrest me. They sent me home. And my dad, basically a couple days later, and said, "You got three options." He goes, "Here's the options. You can move out and, go ruin your life, keep working in the pipe yard or whatever, doing what you're doing, or you can go to college and I'll help you." Says, "You got to work, but I'll help you." And he says, "Are you going to join the military?"
Right.
And he said, "That's it. That's what your choices are." And I said, "But one thing he's not going to be is you're not going to be sitting here eating dinner with me and going out drinking every night, partying." And at that point, I said, "Okay." I told my mom, I said, "Okay, I'm going to go to college." And I put in for 3 schools. I put in for Southeastern, where my buddy Gary Vidross went.
Right.
And I put in for LSU. And as soon as I sent that letter, that application, that letter, they must have received it on the other end and sent it back immediately, because it wasn't 2 days before it got back. It said, "You were
Denied.
And my wife says nobody from Louisiana gets denied access to LSU. I said, "I am young."
That's another podcast, Darryl.
Yeah. So then I got, USL said, I got a letter from USL, and you guys remember Coach Guerrero?
Yeah.
Offensive line coach?
Yep.
He wasn't our coach our senior year. I don't know where he went. He went someplace, but Brock was our coach. But Guerrero, I had talked to him at the gym one day and working out with Mott, the twin tires, the Richards.
Yeah.
They used to own
Definitely.
a gym over in Gretna. And I was working out there, and him and Mott was working out, and I was talking to him, and so I'm thinking about going to school. So I told him what I did, and in that letter, it was a letter from USL, and it was a letter from Coach Rogers, who's the offensive line coach. He says, "Why don't you come out here and come out here, try out?" I said, "Okay." So I went down there in the new first semester in January 1982, drove across that bridge, during the ice storm, broke down on the bridge, the whole thing,
Right.
everything went wrong.
Right.
And and then got shocked that everybody spoke Cajun French and you couldn't understand anything they said. Yeah. Never been on campus before. The Cajun Dome didn't exist, but they had a nice football facility, a nice football stadium. And I showed up there in the weight room, introduced myself to Coach Rogers, 2 days into it. They gave me gear, sent me out there to go try out. And me and my ice wagon showed up. The ice wagon I was dragging behind me the whole time. Walked in the door and saw Mike Kane, Louis O'Rourke, and Mark Backnell.
I'll be dang.
Had my first workout with them, worked out with them. I was in pretty good shape. I'd been working out and I'd been getting in shape. And I lost a bunch of weight. I was down to about 215 and I was doing pretty good. And I worked out those guys 5 days. I'm not kidding you, 5 days, every day worked out. I went in back on a Monday, and this is springtime, and their lockers were gone. They were gone, man. They left. That was all. Yeah, Louis left, Mike left, and Mark Backnell left. Wow. Classes hadn't even started yet, and I was like, they didn't even finish out the semester. And I said, well, I guess I'm here all by myself.
Right. Wow.
It was me, some dude from Brother Martin, and a guy from Lafayette High. We were the only walk-ons there. And again, man, I'm back to Shaw, man, getting my ass handed to me.
Right.
But it was a good experience. And I figured out that I could do better in the education arena. I could do better in school because it's actually stuff that I was interested in.
Right.
What I was studying. And I did well and started studying. And finally, I hurt myself pretty bad and I broke some ribs and they gave me a flak jacket. And at that point I said, well, I think that's going to end my college career because I wasn't on scholarship. It wasn't worth me being there. And I just said, you know what? Let's just focus on the education. Right. But I called my dad and I was in tears because his dad's the first thing I ever quit in my life. I don't quit anything. Right. And he goes, let me ask you something. He said, are you there for the education? You there for play football? He goes, I got news for you, son. You're not going to play in the NFL.
Right. Yeah.
And I said, I guess, right. He goes, so, your education is where it's at. And he put a pretty fine point on it. And at that point, I focused on that and I did pretty well. And actually I did real well. And it was just the type of learning. It was just say I was a late bloomer.
Well, you ended up with an industrial engineering degree, correct?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's not something to give away, man. You got to buckle up for that, man.
I was very fortunate. One thing I will tell you, though, and I'll credit this, and this is one of the reasons why I wrote the book, is I'm a big fan of community colleges.
Yes.
I spent that one semester in community college, and I want to tell you something. Delgado had one of the best learning centers I've ever seen. And they had a very good math lab, and it really helped me out a lot because that's where I was weak at in math. And, I didn't have Lazar, man. Lazar, he would have ridiculed the crap out of me in class, so I didn't have him. It was me and Joey Rodriguez tugging it out, and, Mrs. Kim's class.
Yeah.
And so we, to have that, it worked out pretty good. And it gave me a basis, and gave me confidence. And at that point, I did well. And I'll tell you something else. Keith Bourgeois wound up being my roommate my second semester. And he did something that I'll always be very, very thankful about Keith is when I quit playing ball, he came in and said, hey, man, he goes, why don't you come rush a fraternity?
Okay.
And I said, rush a fraternity. I said, man, dude, I am so blue collar. I don't even speak right. These are all Jesuit boys and Holy Cross boys at Southwestern.
Right.
And a Rummel boy. I said, man, I'm going to, and Keith says, man, trust me. And so I rushed a fraternity that did not have a fraternity house. They burned down the fraternity house partying, but their own fraternity house. So the sole reason why I joined the fraternity is because they had something called a charity football tournament.
Okay. And
every spring they would do this charity football, but they would get out in gear. And these are all good ball players in high school. And we would practice for a month before we played that game. And I'm going to tell you something. That game, we would hurt ourselves.
Yeah. Oh,
We
yeah.
put it all out on the line. And I joined that fraternity for that. It was a Lambda Chi Alpha. And I wind up that fraternity just did a lot for me. It taught me a lot about organization, taught me about friendship. It taught me about a brotherhood. It taught me how to basically stick together, help each other through. And that was a great experience in college.
Well, talk to me
When I
about
finished college, yeah, go.
how you ended up going into the military, Darryl. How did that come about?
My junior year, they had a guy dishing out flyers, and he was this little skinny guy. He's about 6'4", wearing ice cream white uniform, sharp looking uniform. I walked past that guy and I said, "Holy shit, man! That guy's got ribbons. He's got a pair of wings." And I was like, "Oh shit, he's got gold wings."
Right.
I like that. And I knew about aviation enough. I didn't know the difference between an officer and a enlisted. I didn't know any of that stuff, but I knew a little bit about it because my dad. So I tried to talk to this guy, and this guy was an asshole to me, total asshole to me. Turned his back on me because I was a big boy, and he just looked at me, and I couldn't. He said you couldn't fit in the cockpit. When I tried his attention, he said you can't fit in you can't fit in the A4 cockpit. Your shoulders are too wide. Now I'm not that big now, but back then I was a big boy.
Right.
And he goes, your shoulders are too big for the cockpit. And I just pissed me off so bad. Well, 3 or 4 months came by, and they had a different guy out there doing basically the same thing.
Okay.
And I muscled my way into that guy. So that's the guy I need to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Come to find out, he was head of recruiting. He was a ship driver. Now you would appreciate Jay. He was a ship driver. He was a SWO. Now he was trying to get me to become a SWO, and I said, I don't want to be a SWO. I want to be an aviator, man. I want to be an aviator. I'm going to fly airplanes. And what I didn't say is I was actually working. I had worked out in the pipe yard, but I had gotten laid off in the pipe yard, and the guy that laid us off put us working on his personal airplanes out at Lakefront Airport. And that's how I kind of fell in love with flying.
Okay.
And anyway, to make a long story short, is that guy said, "Hey, I think I can get you in." And at that point I was rolling into my senior year.
Mm-hmm.
But it hadn't jived yet. So he actually, I don't say this in the book because it gets too long, but he put me on the back shelf. And then once I graduated, I went to go see him, and he had a program for me, and he applied for the program. Now I'm thinking I'm going to leave tomorrow. I took the test and everything. I'm going to leave tomorrow. Well, man, it took him 6 months to process this paperwork. And I had already gone through all my doubts. I had already, I was ready to not do it.
Sure. I
had been working as a substitute teacher with Janelle Watney at Higgins High School with Scott Brouillette. Yep. I had pulled cable in the shipyard at Avondale Shipyard. I had a freaking industrial engineering degree. I was driving to Houston in my 1976 Monte Carlo to do a job interview, because back then we had paper resumes.
Right.
So you go drive. I had 100,
knocking on
paper
doors
resumes.
and shit.
I go to every company, on the Beltway here, trying to give out resumes, and finally I got a pretty good job working in a refinery,
Mm-hmm.
and the guy owned this little business, and I wasn't pulling cable, but what I was doing was supervising a crew doing all this cable pulling, and I kind of liked it. I was making good money, man.
Okay.
And my dad got a phone call one day. This is funny. My dad got a phone call. My dad never knew how to check a message on an answering machine. You remember, he just saw the red button. Cheryl, come check it. Cheryl, come do this technology. Cheryl, come change the channel, right? My mom. Anyway, my dad had come home for lunch one day, and he saw the red button. He hit the red button, and it was recording. And the recruiter said, "Hey, man, we got your package in. Come on down here and get recruited. There's a movie coming out next week, and you need to be down here, because if you don't, you're going to lose your slot." My dad gets in the truck. He drives all the way down the Bellchase Highway, down to Bellchase, down to that refinery down there. Pulls in there. It's a Conoco refinery. Pulls in a Conoco refinery. Gary Vidross's brother, that's Steve, Johnny. Johnny's running the crew. he says, my dad pulls up there. My dad knows Johnny. He says, Johnny, where's Darryl at? He says, over there working a number 2 pump over there. You know, they're installing some stuff. I said, okay. So my dad takes off down there. He gets down there. He finds me on a ladder, you know, inspecting some stuff. And he goes, hey, boy, get your ass down off that ladder. Come here. I want to talk to you. Everybody turns around. That entire refinery knew my dad.
Right.
Turned around, looked at him and said, oh, this is going to be big. I get down there. I said, what's up, Dad? And he goes, hey, you went to a Navy recruiter? I say, yeah. I said, yeah, you're not supposed to know that. Said, yeah. Well, what do you apply for? I said, I applied to go flight training. He goes, you did? He says, well, I just got the answer machine. And that recruiter said he got a slot for you. He says, you get in that car, you go clean up yourself, and you go down there. I said, Dad, I don't know if I want to do it. I'm liking what I'm doing. He says, let me tell you something. You get in that car, you're going home, you're going to clean yourself up, and you're going to call that recruiter right away and tell him you're going to be down there in a half an hour.
Right.
And I said, Dad, I can't get across the river in a half an hour. And he says, yeah, you will. I'm going to get you there, boy. You get your ass.
Yep.
So he made me go down there, and I wind up getting sworn in that afternoon.
I'll be
and
darned.
That movie came out 2 days later. It was Top Gun.
Yep.
Wow.
And the recruiter told me, he says, if you would have waited, you would have never gotten your slot.
That's crazy, man. That's
he
crazy.
says, because the recruiting thing went through the roof.
It did.
After.
Before Greg and I went in, I bet we went to Oak Ridge to watch the $1 movie. We went to see Top Gun, I promise you, 4 times a week. Every week before we went to the Navy. Every week. And enjoyed it every time we went.
Yeah, and it was a great, I'm glad I did. And then a month later, I'm packing up my stuff. My mom's packing up my stuff. By that time, it's July. And but the program I was in was Aviation Officer Candidate Preparatory School. So I didn't go right to Pensacola. I had to go up to Newport and for 8 weeks. And basically, it's, certain regions of the country, they just tap people that they're not doing well commissioning, and they tap them. Either these people can't swim. Well, I didn't have any problems swimming. Right. I just had problems speaking and writing English,
That's that Archbishop Shaw education, right, Troy?
So, Jay, you're going to love this. I spent 8 weeks learning how to read Navy messages. Now, that's cryptic, right?
That's crazy.
Right. Let me tell you something. You learn how to read a Navy message. Now, Troy, a Navy message is basically the way the Navy communicates. And it's very cryptic the way it is, the way it's read. And everything has a meaning, and every line and every dot. Well, to learn how to read and to be able to get that training is you're a head start above everybody else, right?
Right.
And then the acronyms on top of acronyms,
Yeah,
my God,
exactly.
It's brutal.
Yeah, it's did that, and then went after that. I was what they call a candidate class officer, the senior guy, and then half of those guys, 3 of us were going to Aviation Officer Candidate. Was going to AOCS down in Pensacola. Okay. The other guys we had a class like 15 guys. The other half of that class was staying right there in Newport, and they were going to surface warfare officer.
Okay.
And 2 or 3 of those guys were going to go be SEAL.
Okay.
So they went through some training. So when we left there, I got an airplane, left Newport, Rhode Island, flew down to Pensacola. Now they told us that we had to show up. Now you're going to love this. They told us we had to show up in our khakis, right? Our candidate class officer khakis. I show up, and the candidate class officer, the anchors are different for officer candidate school than AOCS. But these guys had never seen guys like us. So when we show up there on a Saturday,
who's these derelicts?
We just get abused, just abused. Now we hadn't met the drill instructors yet. We just get abused. And then, once we get in AOC, then Monday morning you go get your physical. And if you pass your physical, Tuesday morning, you get the introduction to the drill instructor. And that's when they come down there with the garbage cans. And,
right.
And it's a Marine.
Right.
And that duty is the best duty that you can have as a drill instructor. And they loved it. And
look, But Darryl, I know you retired as a lieutenant commander. Is that correct? Commander. I'm sorry, a commander, which is a 05, right? 05.
Right.
Okay, cool. And so I want to get to the book right now. So one of the first questions I have is what really motivated you to write what I see as kind of a self-help book for people, and one part I love that's not geared towards one age, it's geared towards everybody, all age ranges. So what inspired you or motivated you when did you get this idea to write a book about your experiences here? Look at Troy with the cat on his shoulder, man. Look at this boy. Even the cat's interested in it now.
She wants to learn.
Over the years, people would contact me and, like, Jay, like, you might have a friend that's got a son, and they would kind of, hey, my son's thinking about becoming an aviator, or he's thinking about going in the military, or they want to go to the Naval Academy, or they want to go, and they want to go in the Marine Corps. And they say, hey, can you go talk to him? And a lot of times I think parents wanted me to either talk them out of it, or they wanted me to, basically put perspective on it, experience. And so over time, I just started building this repertoire where people would just call me. And I bet you if I don't do 20 a year, and I've been doing it for the last 10 or 15 years, especially since I retired. Well, being an entrepreneur, when I got out, I started my own business. I own a defense contracting company I started, and I own a flight school. We acquired a flight school.
Nice.
I started to see it more and more. Now, full disclosure, I'm not a CFI. I don't have time for that.
Right.
But I'm not a certified flight instructor. I was a flight instructor in the Navy, but I'm not one civilian wise. So, but I own a flight school, and I see these kids coming in, and I see them, asking all kinds of questions. And so what I started doing was I had all these notes over the years. I just kind of combined them and I put them into a format to where you could speak to it. That's the reason why I wanted to do it, was put it in a format so you could talk to people, and it covers every single scenario. It covers everything, everyone that I've seen. I've seen guys who are already in the military, enlisted guys that want to go to become a pilot. I've seen it for guys using their GI Bill.
Right.
I've seen it from guys who were military guys. They wanted to go fly directly for the airlines, for the big airlines. I seen it, I got asked all these questions. And generally, up until 10 years ago, a kid had to go in the military if he wanted to fly for the airline.
Right.
There was no other way of doing it, man. It was just too expensive. You can't go get a 4-year college degree, and then all of a sudden you're paying $150,000 for your 4-year college degree, and then you got to pay another $100,000 to get your flight training. Well, go become a surgeon.
Well,
at
I
that
think
point,
you alluded
right?
in the book. It was a rich man.
Exactly, to do it in the civilian sector. But as I became the owner of a flight school, things started to change, and the airlines started to get rid of this requirement for to have a college degree. And quite honestly, college degrees have cheapened a lot. I mean, kids are going to school, and I'm pretty fortunate. My kids, both of them, one of them has an engineering degree. He's at test pilot school. The other one's got a cyber, geeky cyber degree. Those guys are very marketable. Anything
Absolutely.
they do.
Sure.
Okay. But if you don't have a STEM background, you go to college and you pay $100,000 for a college degree. What are you doing?
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm not saying, look, if you can afford $100,000 to go become a school teacher, knock your lights out.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. But if you're going to go take out a loan and put yourself in debt for the rest of your life, and not pay for a house. And so I started really listening to Mike Rowe.
Yeah.
And Mike Rowe is really on this, hey, you can go dirty jobs kind of thing, Well, being a pilot's not a dirty job, but if you're a halfway smart kid, and you're going to go dump make $100,000 loan to a school, but not sure what you're going to do. Right. might want to consider maybe going to flight training, someplace, a high-end flight school, and paying taking that loan out for $100,000 of flight training. Because guess what? The ROI is pretty immediate.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you become a doctor, you're 10, 12 years before you start paying back those loans. Okay. If you're a pilot, okay, I'll tell you right now, a year to become a CFI, 2 years, and this is pretty conservative numbers, and then another 2 years to build your flight hours, which guys that are coming through my school are doing 10 months. They're getting their commercial license, becoming a CFI, working for me, and then 2 years later or 15 months later, they're sitting in the right seat of a regional jet.
Right.
I got one kid I talk about in the book, Braden. A kid, he had to wait. He had to wait to turn 21 so he could go fly for the
That's
airline.
crazy.
Yeah,
Dedicated
it's
and
two
committed.
different numbers. There's 21. Yeah, 21 to fly if you got certain type of qualification, and then 23 for if you don't have a certain type of education qualification. This kid had to wait around, man.
Sure.
Had to wait to turn of age so he could go fly for the airlines. One of the best students he wasn't a student, he was our CFI. One of the best kids we ever had.
Nice.
I love flying with the kid. He was just in my house not too long ago. He's a captain. This kid is 25 years old. He's a captain, a regional jet. He's flying in and out of
On
here.
the left seat.
Sky Houston. Hey, Big D, can I come hang out with you and Mel? And I want to introduce you guys to my girlfriend. This dude's making more money than me.
Right. That's when you're proud,
He's like, hey, I want to take you out on my boat. You got to see my nice boat. His kid's got, I'm like, I'm just smiling from ear to ear. And I'm like, 25 years
Man,
old.
that's a proud.
You could not make that shit up.
Yeah.
So
that's a proud moment.
There's a huge career out there for these kids. And not only that, there's subliminal messages in there in this book. It's like, parents, where you start spending money, think about what you're going to do. Break the paradigm.
Sure.
Stop throwing your money away in these institutions that you get no ROI out of.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You got to get a return on your investment.
Well, and then again, you're learning at a younger age of thinking outside the box with your career. And there are other things you can do. And I mean, I'll use myself as an example. And I wasn't ready to go to college when I was younger at that time. And I fought it, but I had it drilled into me. You got to go to college to be something. You got to go to college to do this. You got to go to college to do that. And it kind of threw me off. And I really wanted to work with my father's company. And I can tell you, Darryl, after I read your book, and I'm half colorblind with 200 vision. I'm like, man, I want to learn how to fly. I was excited after I read your book. And I want to go to the lighter side of it for a second, because when Troy and I were talking about the show and one of his first experiences with flying, you got to hear this story and how he became a fan of flying. And this is a typical Troy Cotten story, so I love it. So, Troy, lay it on us, man.
I was about 9 years old, and we had a camp back of Bayou Dogre, back of Lafitte.
Yeah.
We used to leave, like, when daylight savings time was here, we'd leave on a Friday, or when the other time we just leave early Saturday morning. Well, they had a pilot with a seaplane that was friends with my uncle who had the camp. His name was Frank Gerard. So Mr. Frank would come bring the newspaper and some donuts on Saturday morning, and he'd just tie his plane up to the dock and go in there and shoot the bull with everybody. Well, I used to go in, sneak into his plane and get in the seat and act like, I'm flying a plane. I'm flying a plane. Well, one day, Mr. Frank snuck, and I didn't see him, and he jumped in that plane and started it up, and I almost shit in his seat. I'm like, he said, let's go, boy. And I went, no. So he turned the engine off and he just laughed. He laughed. So I was about 11 and still never been in a plane. And we took my mom, we used to go to Astro World once a year. So my mom decides, instead of driving with my Aunt Trudy, we're going to take a train. So took a train to Houston, did our time at Astro World, went to the Astros game. She says, yeah, I think we're going to fly home. And I'm like, I'm not flying. I'm not flying. She says, yeah, we're going to fly. And I started acting out, bruh, like, I'm not going on the plane. She beat my ass in the hotel room. And then the next thing you know, I said, well, let's go. Let's go to the airport. And I got on that plane and we took off. And that was like the best time I ever had in my life. So we go back to the camp and I'm sitting in that, Mr. Frank's in there talking to everybody. And I'm sitting in his plane just checking it out. He jumps in, he starts the engine. I said, let's go. And he took me around in the seaplane, and he used to take us flying all the time. But that's how I love flying, you know?
You know, as a kid, man, we saw seaplanes all the time.
Yeah, they took off on the Harvey Canal. You could hear them.
Yeah, we see them all the time, you know. The other thing, too, is we had a couple of guys, you know, Bubby Schultz, Clarence Schultz's dad.
Okay. Yeah.
He was a helicopter for JPSO. And that was the closest I ever really got to an airplane when I was a little kid. You know, my dad took me out. They used to land that helicopter over the pasture on Manhattan, right across where that trade school is. Well, that was open pasture out there. They used to have some tanks and all that. That was my grandfather's dairy farm. Okay. My grandfather had a dairy farm out there. And so they would land that helicopter out there. My dad would take me out there. And that's how I knew, you know, Mr. Clarence was the helicopter pilot. And there's some pictures of him on the internet standing next to that old helicopter. And I remember, and that picture was taken in Manhattan field. It's not in his parking lot now, but you know, aviation, you know, I fell in love with it. It's cool. It took me away. I would just, you know, I remember stretching, talking to Pat Cass and my senior year. Pat's like, what are you going to do? And Pat's like talking, I think I might go in the Army. And I said, yeah, man, if I'm going anywhere, man, I'm going in the Air Force or the Navy. I'm going to fly airplanes.
Right.
And Pat would say, dude, you and I are graduating last in the class, man. And I said, well, Pat, I think I beat you. Pat was way above me, man. You know, I said, Pat, I beat you. Hey, I want to tell you one last story.
No,
this
go
is
ahead,
a good
please.
story. Brother Ken talked me out. Brother Ken said,
Brother Ken Rhodes?
You're not going to college.
Yeah. It's okay.
He said, you're not going to, he said, I cannot make a recommendation for you to go to a university, go to college. You go get a trade, basically. And that was second and endorsed by Father Tom. Now, Father Tom baptized my kid. I did not know this at the time. Okay.
Right.
And so later on in life, but, you know, get past all that. I go through college, I graduate college and all that stuff. And I go military and I go get my commission and I get my wings. Well, one of the first things is I go get legal school, because in a squadron, you got a ground job as well as a flying job. A flying job is just your secondary job. A lot of people don't know this. Flying in the Navy is your secondary job. Your real job is a leader.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so I was a legal officer. They sent me to school for 6 weeks in Newport, Rhode Island. So when I get to Newport, you know, I got my brand new 2 ribbons or whatever, gun qualification ribbon or whatever. And I got my brand new shiny wings that I'm pretty proud of. And I show up at legal school, and down at legal school down there in Newport. Well, the first Sunday I get there, I'm going to mass. Okay. So when I go in mass, you know, guess who's giving masses? Brother Ken is now not Brother Ken anymore. He's Father Ken.
Right.
Well, not only that, Father Ken is now a lieutenant in the Navy. Okay. I want to tell you, he was a lieutenant for a while too, because fast forward, I'm the XO of a base.
Right.
Okay. Downrange. And guess who shows up as one of my chaplains, the man who you need to go to trade school, you know, he would just look me down. And by that time I had a rack of ribbons like that. And he would look me up and down. He would just shake his head. I said, hey, and back then I had shaved all my head. I said, yeah, I have long hair, a long way from that afro there, Father Ken.
Man, that's something, man.
He is now retired. He is now retired and embossed in the Salesian home in Boston.
Sure.
So
I have a couple, good memories of him. I thought he was an all right guy from what I remember.
No, he was just fine.
Yeah.
He just was doing what he thought was right.
Right.
That's
and,
not.
and
that's
sometimes
nothing.
it's a subliminal motivation, that they're doing as well, and there may be a little bit behind it, but the main thing is that you were cool about it. That's the main thing. You took the high road with it, and I think that's very admirable.
Well, God has a way of intervening.
Sure.
Jesus is not going to let you take. He's going to make you work for it.
Oh yeah.
Now, some people it comes a lot more natural to them. Okay.
I'm not one of those.
But I'm going to tell you, it's a hard fall. It's a hard fall when they fail. When you're a grinder, look, we grew up on the West Bank, man. Everything we did was
grinding, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
We grew up in a very blue collar area, cancer capital of the world, baby.
Yep.
Okay. The best people in the world, but we didn't know how hard we had it. You drive down Peters Road. I've never seen a neighborhood anywhere it's like Peters Road, anywhere that I've lived around the world, very industrial. And you had to be a tough guy.
Yeah.
You had to be a tough kid, bro. And you had to, so God prepared us for that. Jesus is going to send you on his path.
Right.
You just got to be willing to accept it and be willing to work for it and figure out, what your path is.
I had a guy that I interviewed recently in a podcast. Ronald George was his name, and he said it a couple of times. He said, "Jesus is going to be there with you. You just got to activate him," and I love that.
Yeah.
But I want to go back. I got a question for you, so, Troy. Because I had some questions here developed. Troy, I'd like you to jump in on this too. So back in high school, at Archbishop Shaw, hey, we got to give a little promotion here for Truck Email, man, a big truck, man. We love him and we miss him, baby. Big salute to Truck.
Good old
as Troy said, I know a lot of people, but that guy knew a lot of people. So anyway, and for all our viewers, Truck Email is a good friend of ours, Donald Truck Email. He passed away almost 2 years ago now, and man, what a great friend he was to all of us. Equipment manager for the football team, and Darryl and Troy knew him really well, like myself and many of our guests. And man, what an awesome guy. But going back to our high school, I mean, Troy, again, who would have guessed, Darryl would ended up, the career he had in the Navy. And the question I have for you is, Darryl, is guys that are getting out of high school and that, and the no kind of BS tone you wrote in the book, which again, I thought was great. What is something that you can share early on that somebody just kind of, motivated you to take that path? Just give me a little short answer for that. Who kind of motivated you, and did you have any idea back in high school this was something you would even dream about?
No, I kind of knew I wanted to fly airplanes some way, somehow. I didn't know how. I figured it would come to me. But one thing I did know is my mom and dad did put a pretty good work ethic in me. He says, hey, look, don't quit. Don't ever quit. Don't ever let anybody tell you no. And it's hard to join the military now. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to get, and I say that in the book. If you think you're going to get in the military, you're going to graduate high school and just go walk in the military and not be prepared. Did you guys hear the words from Pete Hegseth today? Yeah. Look, in the days of kids just graduating high school, going to join the military, you got to be smart. You got to prepare for it. You got to get your body ready for it. You got to get your men ready for it. So you just can't take no.
Right.
And so you might not be able to make it. You might not be able to pass that test. But what do you got to do? What I do talk about in the book, but I haven't talked about, is I had to go lose 40 freaking pounds. Yeah. I had to go lose 40 pounds. And he said I couldn't fit in an A4. Well, man, by the time I got through with it, I could fit in an A4. I was a skinny dude, man. But
you were
let me
motivated,
tell you something. My mama helped me, man.
You had a goal.
My mama helped me. My mama was getting my ass up out of bed early in the morning, make me go run. And then she was cooking. She was cooking all kinds of fish. And my mama hated fish, man. She's from North Louisiana. She'd make catfish for me. And catfish is, you can't eat fried catfish.
Right, you're right, Troy. I was about to say that ain't the fried kind we like,
And It's oily, but she would feed me that. And she hated that catfish,
Right.
but boy, you know what I mean? So you got to have a ecosystem, and you got to say, I'm not going to quit, but you got to have a strategy behind it. You got to get up off your ass. Playing video games in the basement is not, let me tell you something. You sat in that played their video games when you graduate from high school, and you don't do something about it. 10 years goes by real fast.
No doubt.
And then you next thing, and I cannot tell you, and Jay, I know you proud to have served.
Absolutely.
But how many people have walked up to you and said, and your career and said, I wish I would have served, or time got past me. I got too old.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And
I met quite a few of the coulda, woulda,
shouldas,
shouldas, believe me, over the years.
Coulda, woulda,
Over the years, I met quite a few
and
of
it's
those.
not just about the military, it's about anything.
Yeah.
It's about, you want to start a business, get off your ass and do it. Do the work. You want to write a book, get off your ass and do it. Okay. This book could have been written by some of my CFIs, the great people that work their ass off every day, that work for me, but they were busy. I said, okay, I'll do it.
Right.
I'll do it. So my point is get up and get moving. Do not waste your time.
Troy, working offshore for years. I know you know about it as well. It's kind of a parallel type of thing. And, when I grew up, my father owned an industrial x-ray company. And like I said, I was too immature at the time to knew what direction I was going to go in. And, I got great friends I hung out with from Archbishop Shaw to this day, Greg, Mike Stahl, Prestonberg, Phil Wagner, Mike Toops, the list goes on and on and on. Mike Nicari, the Hintz brothers, Troy, it goes on and on. Darryl. And, but, we got to figure things out sooner or later. And to me, a lot of it is the foundation. If the foundation is either your family, your parents, or is it your friend network with their parents and your school, Archbishop Shaw. I'm still proud of this day that I went to that school and barely got through, but I got through. But
I'm the same.
Yeah. And I think all three of us and a lot of our friends are kind of the same way. We were all raised in the same area.
Hey, Jay, they'd have all the parties, all the keg parties and all that stuff. They'd all be in Timberland,
Right.
or Tall Timbers, or Terrytown.
Right.
Man, there wasn't no keg parties over in where we lived.
No.
Marrero,
there was no keg party.
We got to go to the old log cabin, the old Schnells, and Troy knows drinking the moonshine in the back, the homemade wine,
Me and Big Gary V. Dross.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Big Red Gary V. Look, Gary and he lived down the street from me. Him and I are best friends. But I want to tell you something. We barged every freaking party because otherwise we wouldn't have done anything, man. We became the wedding crashers, before that movie came out. Because there was nobody going to invite us to a party on that side.
Yeah, right on.
Darryl Centanni was not cool. I may have had a nice fro and everything, but I played ball, but I was not on the A list when it came to parties and stuff like that. And it was like, hey man, we got to go barge ourselves in.
We don't need an invitation, man. Let's go. Well, let's get back to the book. So, a couple other things I had here, Darryl. So, aviation is kind of full of glamorous myths like, Top Gun that we talked about. And I think your book kind of brought a reality check to some of those things. So, what do you think is one of the biggest misconceptions about training to become a pilot that you would say, hey, man, that's not really true. That's not right there. So what is something you would say to a myth, or I call it the Hollywood effect on things?
So you train to fail all the time. You're always training to fail. When I say that, what it means is, as soon as you take off an airplane, as soon as you get airborne, the first thing I'm looking for is, where am I going to put this airplane down when I lose an engine? Am I 700 feet, 800 feet? I need to be 800 feet for me to be able to turn back to the field in this particular airplane. I need to know where I'm going to put this airplane down. I need to know what my procedures are. I need to know, in my mind, I'm going through this all the time. You're constantly, even when you're flying across country, you're sitting up there, you're looking at all your instruments, because if something fails, What are you going to do next? Where are you going to put that aircraft? And we had this saying in aviation, it's called aviate, navigate, communicate. And even as a backseat guy, you know, we were always, look, in a P3s don't spend much time over land. Okay. Most of the time they spend over water.
Right.
A long way away from land. Okay. So a P3 goes down in the water. Okay. I'm going to tell you, I've been on P3 flights where we were crossing the North Atlantic. We weren't sure. We had what you call a chip slide on the airplane. We lost an engine. You get the halfway point, you know, across the Atlantic, and you're trying to figure out, oh shit, can I make it back? Do I have enough fuel? Everybody in that crew is working on that airplane, trying to figure out, can I go forward or can I go back? It's not just the pilot.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Everybody's trying to figure out what they're going to do. And I've been on an airplane where we were putting on our poopy suits because we thought we were going to put the airplane in the water.
Yeah.
And where we landed the airplane with no fuel. I'm talking engines shut down when we were taxiing in on the runway.
Wow.
You know, and let me tell you something. You got to get new underwear there because those underwear is no longer used.
Troy, that's a different story than when we take the boat out. When we take the boat out and we go to where we're going and you got less than half a tank left. But the good part is you're already in the water. Man, I got a story about that one day, but man,
but some of the scariest things is flying in the North Pole, flying up around the North Pole, set up there, and you're flying down low. I can't really say what we were doing, but you're flying down low, and all of a sudden you realize, hey man, if this engine, if I lose, if I lose a couple of engines on this airplane, I got no place. I got to put this thing down on the ice, on the Arctic ice. I mean, it's like there's polar bears. We see polar bears down there. I've fueled airplanes. I've had our guys fueling airplanes. We were given 10 gauge shotguns. Okay. One guy on the nose of the aircraft, two guys on the wing of the aircraft, and one guy on the tail of the air. Have you ever heard of a 10 gauge shotgun?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
I've never shot one, but I've heard of it. Go ahead, Troy.
That's an elephant gun.
Yeah.
And a 10 gauge shotgun for polar bears. I said, what are we doing with this? Well, you're going to fuel the aircraft, and if a polar bear comes, you're going to shoot them because they will eat you.
Yep.
Yeah, they
I heard them 10 gauges have big kicks. A lot of people use them as goose guns too back in the day.
Yeah.
10 gauge, that's better than a 12 gauge buckshot, man. That's crazy. Holy crap, man. Yeah, that would be something to have a lookout for polar bears. That would be and then they're white, that white with all the white ice.
But you tell that story to people and you're like, really? Oh yeah, man. I'm telling you.
I believe.
And only a Navy guy, only like a Navy P3 guy who flew up out of Thule, Greenland would know that. It's like,
man.
Hey, man. And sometimes people say, well, come on, that's a bit fable. No, it's not a fable. That's for real.
Hey, Darryl, I got a quick question.
Yeah.
Is the Earth flat?
There's some naysayers out there now.
Are you a flat Earth guy?
You know, flat Earth guy.
All right, man. I'll take you up to 35,000 feet and I'll show it for you.
Okay.
It ain't flat.
Now, this ain't 11-year-old Troy. He ain't gonna be yelling and screaming. His mom turns into that Marine instructor. So, Darryl, you've flown in some kind of high stakes scenarios, obviously. What's a pivotal moment you had that kind of tested you the most? And, how did you overcome it?
I think the scariest moment, I've had two, but the one that was most memorable with me is I was a young mission commander and we were flying off the coast of Tunisia. Okay. In the Mediterranean. We were flying out of Sigonella, Sicily. And I'll say what I can say.
Absolutely.
And unclassified, but we were flying and checking out a Russian diesel submarine. And it was after the Cold War it's like a year after the wall had come down.
Okay.
And we were checking out this airplane, this diesel submarine. It was on the surface. Mm-hmm. Needless to say, these guys, we're kind of tracking. He was going around the coastline on international waters. And all of a sudden, the deck of the submarine got really activated with a lot of people on board the submarine. And then all of a sudden, I had our guys put our camera right on the submarine, and we were about I don't know 10 miles away maybe.
Okay.
We were using a FLIR camera, and we were flying at 1,200 feet.
Ooh,
and
that
airplane did the most violent maneuver I've ever seen. And we thought, I went airborne, everybody in the airplane went airborne. We severed a hydraulic line in a hydraulic service center, which that's how you fly the airplane. It's pretty hard to fly without that. And we had ordnance all over the aircraft. The aircraft was bent pretty bad. We had I actually thought we hit the water. Okay. Because I was in the crew compartment looking at the scope, and I actually thought we actually hit the water.
wow.
But then I got out to the cockpit. When I got up to the cockpit, our guys were restarting engines and we were taking off. We were only flying on 3 engines. So we had one engine shut. So we were restarting engines and getting out of there. So immediately we're checking out the airplane, and we're trying to make sure what damage we got inside the airplane. My radar operator came to me. He had written NAVCOM, and he had red crap all over him. I thought it was blood at first. I realized the entire tube was filled with hydraulic fluid, and it's shooting out of the hydraulic service center at about 3,000 psi. Ooh. So that could kill half. And so we're taking off out of there. We're trying to get that door down. Just think about it like a submarine. You're trying to get the door down so that doesn't, till the pressure relieves itself, so it doesn't hurt anybody or doesn't cut the aircraft in half. 3,000 psi on a piece of aluminum is nothing.
Right.
And so we managed to do that, and then we started we had broken legs on the airplane. We had a lot of people all banged up, and we declared an emergency out. We got out. We landed. The cockpit, let me tell you, we were assholes and elbows because we were all trying to get shit done, because you got to clean up the airplane, because you want to make sure you got ordnance on the airplane. You want to make sure you don't kill yourself, make it home and kill yourself. So there's a lot of stuff to do on the airplane, and which we were trying to clean up. And it goes back to that guy, those kids, that airplane went down in China. They were actually lost all of their engines, and they were doing that on the airplane as the airplane was going down. And it wound up landing on land. So we were doing the same thing. We had engines. Anyway, we put the aircraft down. We got down. They had emergency vehicles. They came with us. We parked on the ramp, and we were immediately all put in isolation because they thought that we had done something bad to the aircraft. And they thought that we might have hit the water. We didn't know, and they took us. We couldn't talk to our buddies for like 10 days. We were separated. They gave us a blood and alcohol test, all of us, Basically, the commissar came in and put the light on us and questioned us for, they brought in the FBI. They brought in everybody to question us. And in that 10 days, we were kept separated. Well, up until that point, I had hair. That was Christmas. That was Christmas Eve of 1991. Wow. That was just before 1990, just before Desert Storm started.
Right.
A couple of weeks. We wanted to get back. We wanted to get cleared because we were the next crew to rotate into Saudi Arabia for the kickoff of the war. We wanted to be there for the kickoff of the war.
Wasn't the kickoff of it though in the beginning of 91? I thought. Was it the kickoff of the war in the beginning of 91? I thought
91, January 17th, 1991.
That's what I thought. Okay, all right, cool.
So this was Christmas in 1990. Yeah,
okay,
Christmas
I thought that was okay.
December 23rd.
Gotcha.
And anyway, we landed, and we landed. It was Christmas Day. Got back. 10 days we were separated, and my hair was coming out in clumps when I'd take a shower. Wow. They let me go to the gym with a guard, with the escort, basically. It was a guard, another squadron mate. and I go to the gym. When I come back from the gym, I take a shower, and my hair was coming out close.
Holy crap, man!
And pretty much at the end of that 10 days, I had no hair left.
Wow.
I've been bald ever since. So I lost my hair in 10 days just on that one.
Wow, man, that's crazy. Well, thank you for sharing that story with us, brother. I really appreciate it. I know that's a tough thing, but thank you. So let's get on a positive here with this. So hitting number 1 on Amazon is great. It's huge, and it's got to be beyond thrilling for you. So, well, how do you intend it to open doors for you with the next generation of pilots? Because one thing I really read throughout the book, Darryl, is that there's a big need for pilots in the future because that baby boomer generation is retiring. The older Gen Xers are going to be retiring. So there's going to be a tremendous amount of openings out there. How do you see the book as being a good guide for people to read and something to help motivate them? How do you see that?
Yeah, I'd like to say, it's the other chapter. It's the support mechanism for Mike Rowe's message. Mike Rowe's got a good message about college. You don't have to do the fixed course. Take a look at aviation. I intend on writing another edition in a year and a half on this, and I'm going to add 2 sections in there. I'm going to add the test pilot section because my son's a test pilot, and I'm going to add a mechanic section because aviation is not just you can be a ground pounder, be an aviation mechanics, man. What a wonderful paying career and a cool job. So I just want to get that message out. I own and operate a flight school, but honestly, what I want that message out to the young people that it's a great career. Don't think that robots are going to be flying our jetliners because Troy, are you going to get an airplane? Chapter 1, Jay, you read chapter
I read the
1.
whole book,
are you going to get an airplane?
Absolutely not.
The machine's going to fly it?
No.
Oh. I'm all about drones. I did a lot of stuff with drones, but no, you fly in 300, 400, 600 people on an airplane. You're not going to let that. You're going to have a single fault failure with AI.
No way in hell.
I don't think so.
I wouldn't even get in a car right now that's driven AI right now. I wouldn't do a robot. There's no way in hell.
There's just such a great opportunity for these young people, for young kids today. And even if you're even if you're in your mid 30s to early 40s, you still got 20 years of ROI of making. And let me tell you, signing bonuses are $100,000 a year, just signing with the airlines. And it's the pay is phenomenal.
Well, it's amazing from what I'm seeing with the pay. And like I said, and I keep holding up the book because I want all of our people watching.
It's all in there.
And we got a very handsome picture of Darryl on the back right here too, so everybody can see right there. And but it's just an amazing book. And like I said, after I read it, I was like, man, I wish I was about 30 years younger. Give this a shot, man. Yeah. But it was truly an amazing book. And I think I've already told you, one of my neighbors, his son just graduated high school, and he's very, very interested in becoming a pilot. And his dad actually works in the airline industry as well. And he's supporting him and helping him out there. So, but I brought your book over to him the other day. I brought it over to him, and he was all excited, man. He was really, I told him, you're a good friend of mine. And I said, hey, let me know how the book goes. And, I called you, Mr. Darryl. I said, Mr. Darryl said he would meet with you if you wanted to and that kind of thing. Oh, all right. Yeah, cool. So those are the kind of people that I know you're trying to make an impression on. And again, Darryl, I think it's very admirable what you did. And something like this, man, takes an effort. And it's not just something, I'm just spitting out the words and all this. I know you went through a couple of 2 or 3 editors, I think, to get to this point. You had one of them, I think, try to steer you in more of kind of a direction that's not really you. And you really wanted this book to have the vibe of, hey, man, I'm writing this in my style, in my character, in the way I want to do it.
Yeah, I wanted to keep it. I wanted to keep it true to being a South Louisiana boy.
Right.
We grew up in an area. I wanted to keep it true to that. I wanted to, there's a couple of lines in there that I technically I didn't get out. That you might recognize that might not come from Darryl's vernacular.
Right.
that I missed. My wife pointed it out to me. She said, "You do not talk like that." I said, "Well, I must have missed that one. She must have snuck that one in on me, you know." But it was a lot of fun, and I did it. And honestly, it kind of, when you get motivated about something like that, it kind of writes itself.
Yes.
You know, my wife didn't even know I was working on it. She knew, she had been encouraging me to write down all these stories for a long time.
Sure.
And I didn't tell her that I'd been writing them down for a long time. I got another book. I've already pretty much 70% there along the same lines. So you think you want to be an entrepreneur. Okay. Which falls
Ties
along.
in,
I've
yeah.
actually copyrighted that title. And so you know, and I look forward to doing that. That's going to take a little bit more to get released, because I'm going to have to go through the Pentagon, because I got some stories in that one. I got some real stories.
Well, Troy, you better be ready to co-host that one too, brother.
Ready.
You know, no, Darryl.
Everything for the big D.
Yep. You know that. Number 50,
Jay,
baby.
Jay, I do want to say this. I really appreciate, first off, it's so easy to talk to you guys. I could talk to you guys all night long. It's so easy. Man. You know, we grew up in the same neighborhood. You know, I'm not even drinking a beer. You know, I even had a drink tonight. No. I passed on
Bar
happy
troop
hour.
beer, baby.
But what I'm saying is it's so easy to talk to you guys. I really appreciate you inviting me on this program. And you know, when you're passionate about something, I'm pretty passionate about aviation. I love it. And it's just it's cool.
Absolutely.
It's way cooler than playing video games.
Oh yeah.
Way cooler than playing video games, to do the real thing. And that's what I try and tell kids. Hey, you want to play video game? You want to go do the real thing?
Right.
You want to go fly? You know, I told my son one day, this is no kidding, when we were down in Florida, and I had 3 airplanes down there, and we had a little school down in Defuniak Springs about 5 years ago. And he had come down from college, and he was sitting up there playing some stupid video game, and I was getting ready to go into work. And he was only working for me for like 3 days a week. And I said, "Hey, I'm going to go flying today. You want to go flying with me?" And he goes, "No, I'm kind of cool." I said, I grabbed that video game, I threw it up against the wall, and I said, "We're going flying and have some fun, man. This is not fun. This is
right on with the right on, baby.
Let's go do something and be cool." You know?
Sure.
And, you know, I took him out. I had a lot of fun with him, and I started pretending like, "Shit, Jason. Oh, shit. I don't know, man. No, man." I pulled back the power on him, shut down the power. So, now we got to play video games. We got to land this thing. We got to land this thing, buddy. And, you know, he's like, "Dad, don't do that. Don't do that," you know? But it's funny because, you know, like, hey, do the real thing, you know?
Right.
You put it out there, man. Go out there and do the real thing. You know?
Absolutely.
Anyway, I loved it.
No, absolutely.
So,
and I tell you,
like
man,
I said,
this is something that takes a lot of support from you know, family and friends. So just throw some thanks out there to the wife and kids and everything. Tell us a little bit, Big D.
Well, I'm going to give you a shout out to my wife, because she had to read it. She accused me, you know. I said, finally, I finished it. I told her about it. I said, "Hey, I've been writing this book." And I said, "But guess what? You got to finish it. You got to read it." And she said, she rolled her eyes and she said, "Oh my God." She goes, "You're English." And I said, "Trust me." I says, I've done all right. And so she read about half the book on our way down to Florida. And then on our way back, she read the other half, and she gave me the thumbs up about halfway on the way to Florida. She says, "This is great."
I love it.
Awesome.
And I said, "Well, if it passes your test, that's good." But really positive from, you know, my family. You know,
your 2 sons.
I have a lawyer, you know, my company lawyer. He read the book, and I had to take out names. I had to take out we had to edit it.
Sure.
You know, you got to put there's some legal review you got to do in there, because you don't want to risk yourself. There's a story in there. There's another good story. There's a good drinking story about me doing toe to toe with a famous. It's actually a famous band lead singer of a famous band, drinking shots. So I had to take that name out. But my lawyer and then our CFIs, all of our CFIs read it. I had them read it, make sure the data was good data. And you know, there's some changes I'm going to make on the next edition. But my plan is to put this out every 2 years as changes come in the aviation industry, maybe update some of those stories if I don't kill myself in an airplane, But I try to fly enough just to where I'm not dangerous, not too dangerous.
Absolutely. So, and I understand both your sons are officers as well. So tell me a little snippet about them.
Yeah, I got my oldest son, Dominic, went to LSU. He very proud of him. He did 2 years at LSU, enlisted, figured out he needed some help to finish up his school. I told him I'd help him pay for 2 years. He enlisted in the Air Force and then came back and finished up 2 years, became an officer. And then, and he's doing real well. He's up for major next year. My youngest son, Jason, who's 2 years behind Dom, he's the one that I took flying that day. I threw the video game up against the wall. He's an aerospace engineer. He just finished his master's at Wright-Patterson.
Nice.
And now he's at Air Force Test Pilot School. And he's got about 2 months left, and he graduates December 6th. And he is going to be the program manager for the weapons test for the F-35 program at Eglin Air Force Base.
That's a reflection on the parents, man. That's a reflection on the parents in my book, brother. It really is.
Look, he's I give it all to their mom. Their mom, their mom passed away.
Yeah.
When they were in high school. I've been very fortunate where I've had Mel stepped up and to be the stepmom, and she's
great.
been
Absolutely
super great. And she's awesome, another Louisiana girl.
Hell yeah.
And I'm very proud of my boys. And I got 2 great stepkids, and I got 3 great grandchildren. And then I got another one, 4th one on the way. So Jason's wife, Gloria, is getting ready to have so I like being granddad, man. That's a lot of fun.
Life is good.
Well, I'm old school with this, Troy, because I'm gonna go back to what your dad did. Hey, boy, get off that ladder. Come down here. You go get your John Brown hind parts cleaned up. Right, Troy?
Yep. It's funny, Darryl, your dad, it sounds like your daddy didn't call you Darryl or son. He called you boy, and that's how my dad was.
Mine too.
My dad would bring me to Shaw. He would, on his way to work, and every morning he'd poke his head in the door. Hey, boy, time to get up to go to school. And we go hunting, and if I miss a deer or something,
hey
boy, that deer shit all over you. How can you miss that deer?
Yep.
Just, the terms of endearment of our parents, they weren't flowery and all this kinds of stuff. My parents were, just hardcore good people, though. My dad, everybody loved my dad.
Yeah.
He always had, just good people.
Yeah.
And that's the environment we grow up in. So sometimes I catch myself, I use the word boy, and that could get yourself in a lot of trouble.
Right.
Or I use some of these. I say, the ladies. I'll say sweetheart. That is it's not ever intended to be an insult.
Not at all.
That's all intended to be just a term of endearment and respect, actually.
Right.
Well, talking about respect. I read the reviews on the book. And I see a bunch of 5 stars, but I saw one person gave you a 4-star, man. What was that about?
That's my son. That's my son.
He's out the will.
I got 5 stars, and I got people calling me. For some reason, the way the Amazon thing works, it takes like 5-7 days to get on there. So I don't know how that process works. But, I've had several people call me and say, hey, man, I gave you a review. I thought it was great. My son, I'm reading the reviews, and I'm like, wait a minute, Dom. And I read the review, and I said, whoa, that's a really good review. And then I went to go look at the name, and I looked at the name, and I said, Dom. I said, holy shit, that's my son. My son. My wife, Mel, walked in here, and she is laughing. She is laughing so hard. She says, I saw it. Didn't have the heart to tell you your son gave me a 4.0.
I got to give full disclosure.
I'll tell you a quick story.
Go ahead, Troy.
I'll tell you a quick story. I went to see Jimmy Hentz's son play football, and he had a good game. He caused the fumble. They recovered the fumble. It looks like they were going to lose. They wound up winning the game. So we're going to Buffalo Wild Wings after the game. And, he says, well, what'd you think, Dad? How did I play? Well, you got room for improvement and all of this, So they hang up and I tell Jimmy, I said, dude, your son had a hell of a game. He's like, yeah, but bro, Cotten, you can't tell him that. You can't tell him because it's going to go straight to his head. You can't tell him he had a good game. You got to critique him and tell him what to improve on, whether I got to make it up or not.
So Darryl, I think Dom takes a little bit after your dad with some of this stuff.
Oh, no kid. But my wife, the biggest one, Mel got the biggest. So we're at this weekend, we're at some friend's house, some friends were, they were talking about the book. And Mel couldn't wait to tell them that my own son gave me a 4.0. And she said, oh, that was Dominic that gave you a 4.0.
Sorry, I got to get full disclosure. Darryl told me that in an email, and dude, I had tears coming out of my eyes. I was laughing so hard. And then I had to go on Amazon and look at it. Then I'm laughing even more.
Yeah, Dom, I want to say this to Dom. You might be out the will, partner.
No, I told Mel we're spending it all, man. We're going to spend it all before I kick the bucket, Yeah.
But look, man, I really appreciate having you on the show. But before we leave, I want to see, is there anybody else that you would like to thank and give some credit to, Darryl, before we back out of here?
Yeah, I'd like to thank my business partner, Dave Ricker. Him and I have been together for 16 years. We flew in the Navy. And, I started writing this thing. I kind of wrote it as a recruiting tool. My wife and all the people I work with, I got a great team of employees. Yeah, I don't even call them employees, man. They get stuff done.
Sure.
I got a great team. We got a great company, and they allowed me to write this. And really, it's pretty much their product, because in the end, when these kids come in for flight training, we're providing them the product. They're doing it. Those kids are, our employees are the product. They are absolute professionals. They're the best of the best. Our school has trained over 9,000 pilots over the last 40 years. I'm fortunate enough to have acquired the school and bought the school 5 years ago, but it's a super school. We're very proud of it. So give a little plug to our school, D2 Flight Academy in New Bern, North Carolina, and my business partner. And we got a wonderful family.
What's a website that somebody...
Once again, I appreciate you guys.
Absolutely, yeah,
for helping me plug this. And look, if we get one kid to go do flight training, become an airline pilot, we've done our job.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And the best thing to do is try and pass your experiences, good experiences, bad experiences, off to somebody else that they can learn about it, right? That's the whole thing about storytelling, right? Tell a good story so somebody gets something out of it, Yep.
I like to call it like the old Fat Albert cartoon. If you're not careful, you might learn something. I know y'all remember that.
Yeah.
Troy, you got any last words here, man?
Not really, man. I really, I'm glad y'all invited me. I really, really enjoyed this podcast, and I tell you, y'all two great friends, and we definitely need to get together real soon for some brewskis or something, and or barbecue or something. And thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank you.
Hey, I got one last thing for you guys. Talking about Shaw. Do you guys know it's the Salesian Brothers? It was founded by St. John Bosco, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So do you know what he was famous for?
John Bosco?
Working with kids, right?
Yeah, St. John Bosco.
Mentoring kids,
working with kids.
So what he was famous for and what made him a saint is during the Industrial Revolution in Italy, he basically got kids that they had poor educations or, not the greatest educations, basically got them enough education to where they could go work in the factories. Okay. That is why Shaw, that's why Shaw is Salesian Brothers School on the West Bank. Jesuit was, beat you up and you become a doctor, a lawyer, and all that stuff. Well, Shaw was, so the underlying theme to that is Shaw, St. John Bosco, there's a whole theme there about, hey, it's not everybody has the same path to college and all that stuff. So I wanted to mention that earlier, about St. John Bosco.
No, that's cool,
it's
man.
Interesting saint to read up on.
I think that's cool because one thing I had said recently about Archbishop Shaw and what Darryl's talking about for people watching is the Salesian order of priest brothers is what was assigned to Archbishop Shaw High School. And we had a lot of priests and brothers at that time. And that was the order that they were under was St. John Bosco based out of New York. One thing I brought up recently, I think I may have talked to you about it. I don't remember, is we went to Archbishop Shaw High School, and I just don't ever remember us talking about who was Archbishop Shaw. I just don't remember that a whole lot. And
I think he was an archbishop that was in New Orleans at one time.
I believe so. I did a little research on him. Maybe, man, this was about maybe 10 years ago because I'm like,
I just read something on that. Actually, I read it on the website just recently. I did read something on that. Shaw was the person that was trying to get a Catholic school petition the archdiocese to get a Catholic school in the West Bank.
John Shaw was his name, I think. John Shaw.
Yeah. We've got to go back and look it up.
But I remember reading that because, I mean, I don't know if you guys remember, but I just don't remember hearing much about the man, Archbishop John Shaw, who he was when we were there. And I saw something recently.
You're right. But no, absolutely do not ask me to sing that song, Old Man
we ain't
River,
doing
because
that.
I'm not going to do it.
We ain't doing it.
Near the banks of
Every time you get around the Hance brothers, they want to do it, and I don't know I don't even know the words.
Jimmy's hardcore too, man. I love him.
And I want to talk to Father Ryan. I want to find out whatever happened to the drill team's trophies. They had all these.
They disappeared or something.
Wow.
Yeah, I really want to find out that
him, man.
because they had so many of them. It was unbelievable how good they were.
That trophy case was nuts.
Yeah, it was crazy. I remember that. So look, one last plug in the book, Big D. How does somebody come about ordering this book? Talk to us. Where do they go?
Amazon.com. You can just plug it in there. So you think you want to be a pilot, the gouge, you can write in there the gouge in a search. You can put in there Darryl Centanni. You put in there, but you're going to find it. It's Amazon number one bestseller in the aviation biography section. So
nice.
At least it was up until yesterday. So that's the last time I checked.
Hopefully.
But anyway, I appreciate the plug. And it's just a cool book with some cool stories.
And I'm gonna leave it on this is because when I read the book and going through everything and the chapters, now you lost me a little bit on some of the technical side of things, which that's okay. Like I said, I don't have much experience, but I'd say 80-90% of the book, I was there with you. And one of the things that impressed me the most was when I was reading the book, I could hear your voice talking to me when I was reading the book. And it made it more enjoyable for me, and it made it more, I was able to comprehend things a little bit better. And I can definitely tell you, some of the stories you told, how you were unprepared for the one flight. You smelled like Bourbon Street early in your career. I'm like, man, that's Darryl all the way. But there was some hardcore things you said that was no BS and straight to the point. And I'm like, that's Darryl right there too, man. And, but I really appreciate how when I was reading it, I heard your voice talking to me when I was reading the book. So that was not too many books I can say I read.
Hey, I got one more thing.
Please.
One more thing. I want you guys to say for my wife, when you video this or when you post this, I want you to pronounce my name for Melanie. Pronounce my name the way they pronounce it down in the bayou.
Darryl Centanni.
There you go, Darryl. My wife, she says, I cannot understand when your friends are talking to you. They call you Darryl, and I don't understand.
Darryl Centanni.
That's just the accent. I said, that's just the accent, sweetheart.
Not all of us have an easy name like Troy Cotten, I mean, that's as simple as it gets. The only thing with Troy is it an E or an O in his last name? You don't know.
The spell check gets everybody.
Right. Well, anyway.
Yeah, she's going to want me to give a plug to Captain Shreve, but I'm not going to give a plug to those guys out there at Captain Shreve because they didn't win a state championship.
And we know who did last year,
Yeah. See, Darryl, you misspelled your name. It should have been Dowell.
There you
That's
go.
right,
There you go. You know, I was going to ask you where the D2 came from, but I saw your middle name was Dwayne, and I'm like, I bet that's it.
No,
That's not it?
actually, you want to know? You want to know how brilliant I am?
Please.
Just how brilliant I am. The company used to be Envoy,
Right.
ONVOI,
Right.
because when we started out, we were like a consulting company internationally. I was doing a bunch of stuff in Africa, and my wife, she was British, and she came up with the word envoy. What are you going to be doing? I said, I'm going to be, negotiating and things like that. She goes, well, like an envoy. Well, when you Google envoy, ENVOY, like 1,000 companies out there. But so she went phonetically with the spelling and said, that's what we're going to call it. But when it came to D2, I changed the name. I decided to change the name. We lost a business partner. And so I said, hey, Dave, why don't we just call it Darryl and Dave? Darryl and Dave, square. So the 2 is square, Darryl and Dave.
Okay.
D2.
Awesome.
A little play on the
Look
map.
what comes out of that old noggin of yours.
I love it. I love it.
Brother Ken told me to go get trade school.
Hey,
there I am.
man.
I'm using my higher math.
Look what you did, man. I can't begin to tell you how proud we are of what you've done and your time, Darryl, with all this. So again, man, big props to you and really appreciate it.
Well deserved.
Absolutely.
Well deserved.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it. I really enjoyed tonight. A lot of fun. Now I'm going to go have me a late night cocktail and tell my wife how it went.
Well, you can tell her that, I had to have my boy Troy on here, man. He's the #1 views on the YouTube channel, baby.
I put him up to the idea. I said, Troy, you need to be like a co-host there, right?
I really enjoyed.
Hey, Troy, I'm gonna have your people.
Give Mel a hug.
I'm gonna have your people get with my people, man. Troy's like Ed McMahon, who?
Hey, Troy, we got to beat those numbers, man. You got quite the following, Troy.
Here's JayBo. All right, we got to cut it.
Let's get together soon for a beer.
Well, look, again, we'll ask people to please subscribe or follow us. We're on YouTube, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. And also you can catch us advertising the show on X, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn as well. So we appreciate the guests we have. We plug in the book, So You Think You Want to Be a Pilot. The Gouge by Darryl the Cajun Centanni. Catch it on Amazon. It's a great read for anybody aspiring to be a pilot. Anybody has a relative that wants to be a pilot. It's outstanding. Or if you're just interested in reading about aviation, what's involved with becoming a pilot, highly, highly recommend the book. You can't go wrong with it. It's outstanding. Look at the reviews other than Dom. Outstanding. So again, we thank everybody for supporting the show. We really appreciate everyone that's been, the show's growing. And we're going to be marketing this hard to the Ushership Shaw community in the West Bank as well, Big Darryl. Get our home people out there. And that's it. We want to say we'll catch you on the flip side for the next episode of In the Pocket with JayBo. Thank y'all.
All right, JayBo. Thank you. Thank you.